This is the very first Dolly Transformations from 2022, where the dolls, the makeover subjects, were from the local flea market. All of the other Dolly Transformations were from last year, in 2021, and there was one from a thrift store at the very beginning. It's been an insanely slow flea market season, therefore I haven't had any content to film, haven't found many things, come home empty-handed most weekends. Brief word on thrifting or going to flea markets and yard sales and all of that. You're not going to find stuff every week, and I know it might seem, if you look through my catalog of Dolly Transformations, that I must live in an area where there's tons of dolls and tons of things all the time. That's not true. Obviously, I wouldn't film the weeks that I come home empty-handed. It's not really about my location. It's more just about going all the time, like on a regular basis, and checking. And that kind of sucks with the gas prices now, when you go and you don't find anything. But then you have lucky weekends like this Sunday. So if you're feeling kind of defeated because you go thrifting once in a while and you don't find anything, just know consistency is key. I have a whole video from many years ago I filmed on my tips for secondhand doll shopping, if you're interested in like my advice. This weekend we got this beautiful Cabbage Patch doll who we decided to name Fern. She's from 1987, and yes, she was $15. That 78 was the seller saw it on her head mold. Anyways, she is absolutely darling. We don't have a red head, so even though I'm not buying a lot of dolls anymore because I have so many, I couldn't leave this one behind. She's in beautiful condition, just a little bit dirty. And then we have this Sunshine Family Grandpa. He's my first regular size Sunshine Family doll. I have baby sweets, but no others. I have some clothing to the adults. They also had the dad, but they were $5 each, so I only grabbed one because I didn't want to spend a ton of money. And then we have Kanani. She is in terrible condition. The camera is not doing her justice, but I've wanted Kanani for a long time. But back when I first got into collecting, and I was especially into American Girls, she was a lot of money on eBay. But she was $10, which was normally more than I would pay for one that's so rough and naked. I can tell her hair probably hasn't been cut, and I have wanted her for a long time, and I had found some of her clothes for really cheap a few weeks before at the flea market from a different seller. So she's got all of these like pink marks, and the camera's really not picking up on it, but there's scribbling on her body, and she also has cut neck strings. That's the first time I've encountered that. You can see some of the fibers are in her wig, and she's got stuff all over her lips. I'm not sure if she's got some broken hairs up here or if it's just from like a barrette or something being pulled out, but she's gonna need a lot of work. I didn't need to dunk Kanani's scalp directly into the hot water. I just combed some of it up by the top of her head because it was actually in surprisingly good condition. However, on some dolls, they're going to be really dry and gross and fly away at the top, so you're going to have to dunk them into the water all the way up to the head. It's not going to loosen the wig, it's fine. The only thing you have to be careful of is they have short little wig hairs that are usually hidden underneath the longer hairs, and that's just to cover the actual wig itself. And when you dunk them in boiling water, sometimes it causes those little wig hairs to stick up more. They're not curved anymore over the scalp, they'll be straight, and so it can be kind of a hassle if you're doing like a hairstyle, for instance, like a ponytail. This happened on one of my Felicity dolls and my Sage, so I just have to be a little bit more particular when I'm styling them, but it just made the wig hairs very, very straight up top. I didn't want Kanani's hair to actually be curly like it's supposed to. I just wanted to put some like slight curve at the bottom of her wig, so I'm not putting in like curlers. I'm using a roller set technique I learned in cosmetology school. That's where all these rollers came from. I did this on my Sage because she had really dry hair and I had to boil wash it straight. There was no way around it, but I wanted her wig to have some volume after, and I tried this technique just to see how it would work, and I really liked it. So right after I boil washed Kanani straight, I went in and I had to fashion this weird sort of like mannequin stand. It's just a doll stand that's put around her neck, and I weighted it with staplers. Usually I'd have the doll like with their body intact between my legs, but that wasn't an option. So I'm going row by row with the wefts. I'm using little rolling papers, and I'm rolling them up on these big rollers and using these special metal clips that I also had from cosmetology school. And this just gives the hair body without a lot of curl. It's easy to do it when the hair is wet. You don't want to try this when it's dry because you'll get a lot of flyaways. Kanani was surprisingly very cooperative. She didn't have many split ends at all after I boil washed her, which was shocking because of how matted her hair had been when I got her. But she has really nice conditioned hair despite her past life, so it was easy rolling her up. Usually with humans, the way you do a roller set is you coat each section in gel, but I was going to pour hot water over these curlers after, not setting them with gel, but you can do on an American Girl anyways. You can actually just wet set the curls. They have Kanekalon hair, so if you leave it to dry for a few days, it'll actually hold the curl without using hot water. But hot water is a more like permanent, quote-unquote, way of doing it. And this was Kanani's head after all the rollers were in it. They're made for humans, so these rollers are kind of big and bulky on an American Girl, but they do the job. So I used water that's not actually boiling because their hair is a little bit more heat sensitive. I wait until right before it boils, and you can see I poured a little bit in the bowl just so I could dunk the rollers in. But then I'm going to move to the sink where I just pour straight from my kettle over each roller. Now, one of the things that I don't like about roller setting or putting curlers in American Girl hair specifically is that no matter what kind of like curler or roller you use, whether it's with bobby pins and clips or soft rollers or whatever, you usually get some kind of crease mark from the top of the curler where it sat right up by the scalp, and that makes the finished product not look as nice. That's one of the reasons why I usually avoid curling their hair, because I find it a hassle. So what I do to circumvent this is, you'll see right after I've made sure to get hot water all over every roller, I start taking them out. This is also because I didn't want her to have tons of curls. So I'll take them out, make sure that there's enough wave at the bottom that I want, and then once I'm done, which I didn't film this part, but once all the rollers are out, I will pull the ends of the hair and like tuck them under the doll's butt, or as far down as they go, and then I'll just take a little leftover hot water and comb it / pour it over the top of the head and use a fine-tooth comb to comb out any of those little bumps, because I really don't like how those look. It's something I did in my curling tutorial with Lainey too. This diluted mixture is literally maybe 2 teaspoons of any kind of cheap gel, as long as it's strong hold. I think I'm using the LA Looks brand right now. It takes me forever to use an entire bottle. And then I mix it in this little 8-ounce bottle of warm water. I fill it about halfway with warm water, put the gel in, shake it really well until it's dissolved, and then top it off with water the rest of the way, because too much gel makes for a sticky mixture. The ratio of gel can be hard to master if you're just starting out. I know I used to make it either not strong enough or it would be too sticky, and this is my hack for making my doll's hair look shiny. And of course, with American girls, it's unavoidable that they get those little flyaway hairs. It's just the nature of their wigs, and one of the ways I mask that is when I style their hair, I pour some of this mixture in my hands and then rub it through their hair, and it makes styling so much easier. I also do this with Barbies, Bratz, any of my dolls. It's a little secret tip that I think makes a world of difference. In this clip, I'm getting Kanani ready for her stain removal treatment. You can see how dark some of these stains are. I wasn't sure how quickly they'd lift. I knew it would be one of two ways. This pink marker would either come out immediately after just a few hours in the sun, or it would take forever. And it didn't help that it was getting to the beginning of fall, which meant it was cold and gloomy, and then it also started a rainy season. So I'll explain later in more detail, but basically I couldn't put her outside every day, so she had peroxide on, which this is Hair Developer, but it's literally just straight peroxide. You can use this as long as you don't mix it with bleach or any like hair dye. I kept this on her 24 hours a day. I wrapped her in saran wrap and kept her inside on the days that it was gloomy. I kept using the same saran wrap, if you're wondering, because it would stick to the peroxide. But instead of using Q-tips as the days went on, I didn't want to keep throwing out Q-tips, so I would just use a paintbrush to apply it and rinse it off. That way I wasn't, wasting things. But
in this clip I was using a Q-tip. It took forever. She went out for every sunny day I could possibly get her out for about a month's time, and the rest of the time she was sitting on the dining room table wrapped up. This is normally why I would have just waited until it was really sunny and warm, because the results would have been much, much quicker. But because I couldn't enjoy Kanani with the quote-unquote lipstick the previous owner gave her, I had to do something. I didn't want her looking like a clown. That's why I went through all this effort, but normally it's just worth it to wait until the weather is really warm and sunny. But you will see at the end that I was able to fade them mostly. There was still a little bit left, but even after you do the stain removal treatment, the peroxide will continue, weirdly enough, to lighten the stain, but I got it to a usable state where it wasn't noticeable. And this clip is me making Kanani a little name bracelet. I have made these for all of my contemporary dolls, so all of my like Girl of Today and Girl of the Year dolls, and also for Julie, Ivy, and my sister's Courtney doll, because I think that their collections look really cute with the little name bracelets. It's just sort of like a little thing I started doing this past year, and it's kind of like a little like you're part of the family now gesture. So I just filmed a short little clip of me making it with some stretchy cord and beads that complemented her collection.
This is Fern before. Her face is kind of dirty. She was probably stored somewhere relatively clean. She's got her like big poopy looking diaper on. She's got some little like fuzzies on her hair. And this is the Cabbage Patch doll of Fern, as we named her after. She was really clean, but I did spend a lot of time trimming up the little fuzzies on her hair, as I usually do, because I feel like it makes a big difference on the cabbies with yarn hair. And it's been a long time since I cleaned her, because Kanani's stain removal treatments went on for like a month, so I got bored of seeing her in original outfits, so we changed her into one of my Babyland outfits that I got for my birthday last year. And I know that she had some stains on her body, so I rolled up her little sleeper here. But you can see that her body looks really clean. Those stains, whatever they were from, came out really easily. I think she's super cute. She's my only red-headed Cabbage Patch doll, and she's also one of my few from the later 80s. Then you're not going to see a difference on the Sunshine Family Grandpa from 1975, but this is him. He's so cute. And this is Grandpa Sunshine after. It's honestly not that much of a difference, because he was such a nice doll to begin with, but because I got him the same day, I thought I'd include him in the video. He does have this like really cute little balding spot that I think was intentional on the back of his head. And his hair quality is really nice, so it cleaned up looking like new. And he's a super cool addition to my collection. I think he's really, really, really adorable in a sort of creepy way. This is Kanani before her makeover, with lips that are colored on. She's got this little gouge in her nose that I'm not going to be able to fix. A colored on cloth torso. A bunch of weird marks all over her body, cut neck strings, and of course terrible hair. So that's Kanani before. This is Kanani after. I did not show you just how long this process with her went on for, so let me explain exactly what I did. So there's all the clips that you saw where I took her apart, soaked her body, washed her stuffing, restuffed her body. While that was drying, I did her roller set, and then I put her out for stain removal. So unfortunately, this always happens at the end of like the good sunny season. I always find a doll that has really bad stains, and Kanani had really stubborn, I don't know what it was, highlighter pink, some kind of marker that just really did not want to lift, and the days were getting shorter. It started raining. After having a drought all summer, it just started raining. The weather was really gloomy, so I had to, in order just to even be able to enjoy Kanani, because she had scribbles all over her face, that's why I decided to even attempt in this weather. So you can do stain removal without the sun, but having the heat from the sun and the UV rays will make it go a lot faster. Now, one of the reasons why I encourage waiting until optimal conditions is because you don't have to put the product on as much, so you use less product, which means you're spending less money on product, and you're wasting less product because you don't have to use it for as long. And also, the longer you have the peroxide on the doll, the more potential there is for, like discoloration. So as you can see, I don't really know what Kanani's lips looked like for sure when underneath all of that color that had been scribbled on them. But because what I did is I put the peroxide on every day, even on days when it wasn't sunny, it was raining, I kept her wrapped 24/7 in saran wrap, so 24 hours a day, and I would reapply the peroxide and wipe off the old stuff as it kind of foamed and dissolved. So for about probably close to a month solid, she constantly had peroxide. And it did slowly start to lift, and on the days there was sun, I would put her out, even if it was only maybe an hour or two of decent sunlight. But because of the constant contact, I'm pretty sure it must have faded some of the paint around her lips, because I compared her to my Marisol doll, who has like the same skin tone and is a lot older, and Marisol's lips are quite a bit darker. So normally if you have a doll with stains on their face paint and you put them out and you put peroxide directly on the face paint, it's not going to do this. I have many dolls that I've had to coat their whole face in peroxide because of how they were doodled on, and it didn't do anything. If you look on my stain removal thumbnail, there's a Belle doll that had scribbles all over her face, and I have the after photo, and you can see her paint was fine, and she was very cheaply made. But that is something you have to be mindful of. I think if the stains hadn't been as stubborn and I had been able to put Kanani out in like 90-degree weather with really hot sun, I don't think it would have faded her lip paint. I'm not really sure though what was put on her lips before. I don't really know what chemicals have been used on her. Her face is actually in pretty bad shape. She has some like scratches and scuff marks, and American Girls are pretty heavy duty. Just for like reference, my sister's old Molly doll, our first American Girl, she did not take very good care of. She loved that doll to death, and she does not have a faded torso like Kanani has, and she also does not have any scuffs on her plastic. The only doll of mine from childhood that has any scratches on her plastic is, we have my sister's Josephina doll, who she gave to me later, Isabella. She has a chip on her nose, kind of like Kanani, from when a fan fell on her because our cat knocked it over. And my Felicity doll has a few scratches on the side of her face because I took her in the woods and some branches rubbed up against her. But Kanani has all kinds of like little micro scratches. So this doll has been through the ringer. I don't know what she was exposed to. That can affect stain removal if there was like chemicals put down or whatever kind of marker they used. But I'm not really worried about it. And you can see her teeth paint's fine, so I don't really know what the deal was with that, but I'm not bothered. She does still have this little scrape. I was able to get the stains faded enough. There is a slight, like, tiny bit of pink over here, and then I'll insert a clip of her body. So she had this really big highlighter pink mark on this leg, and you can see in certain light that there is a very faint streak left. I won't be putting her out until the spring again when the weather's warm, because it's just too gloomy. But you can see it really has faded, as have the like blue crayon-y type marks. Those are actually showing up more on camera, but they also really faded. I'm not sure what made those, but I felt like the peroxide didn't do as much on them. It took longer for it to show any difference. I did replace her neck strings that were cut with this zip tie. As for her torso, again, in certain lighting you can still see a little bit of blue scribbling because I'm not sure what was used, but it stained pretty good. So even though I soaked her body in OxyClean, it's still slightly stained, and it came really faded. Like, you can tell there was a lot of wear on the front part of her torso for some reason. And you'll notice she has these little rips that weren't there before. Now, the first time I did her hair and soaked her body, it was fine. But I think what happened is when I went to set her roller set her hair a second time, even though I had it wrapped in a towel, she got a little bit wet down here. The water kind of trickled down the side of her body, and I sat her up to dry, and I think this is so white because it's super thin now. Like this is really worn out, and I think that from it being wet and more delicate and her sitting upright to dry, I think that caused some little tears, which, you know, it's kind of unfortunate, but obviously this was still faded and like slightly stained. I could send her to the hospital and pay for a new torso, but the thing is, the torsos or a torso with all the limbs, it's the same price. It's $50, and I just don't think it's like worth it because I put a lot of work into cleaning up the rest of her body, and the stains are pretty much all gone. So unless this becomes an issue, if it keeps ripping or something, but I can't always try to sort of sew it up, but it just doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially since she, like, it's not like her head is perfect either. There is still a little bit of a stain on her leg. I'm not worried about it. It probably will continue to fade over the next few months without peroxide, and then when it gets nicer out, I'll treat her leg, you know, for maybe a couple more times and see if it lightens. But I'm not going to put any more near her face because obviously it's already so faded you can't tell. But this is her hair. I did have to do a second roller set because from being laying down for so long outside, it kind of flattened out the waves I put, and that was only the second time I did a roller set on an American Girl. I tried it first on my Sage doll, but I am so impressed with the quality of Kanani's hair. I feel like the camera's not doing it justice, but she still has like what I consider the factory gloss from root to tip. And even though she is thin in this area, when her hair's parted a certain way, you can tell that some of the wefts are thinner. She has such full hair on the front, and that gloss, that coating that they must put on is still intact, which is very interesting given the condition of her overall, because her body was so beat up. So I am so impressed with the quality of her wig. It was hard roller setting her the first time without her body because the rollers were so heavy, and that little like mannequin stand I made just wouldn't support them. So I did it a second time, and I sectioned her hair a little bit thinner, and that's exactly what I wanted, just a little flip on the ends for some life. But my Sage doll it had much drier hair that has no like shiny coating left anymore, but the rest of the doll was in great condition, and like seeing the difference in like how shiny Kanani's hair is really shocking because clearly she was very played with. So I'm really excited to have Kanani. I've wanted her since I got into collecting. I always, for some reason, thought I would have her secondhand. I don't know why. I just kind of knew that I'd get a real fixer-upper. And I know that, like, for some people, like, this Kanani doll, like, let's pretend in a world where I bought her to resell, I know that a lot of people wouldn't want her because she's got a lot of, you know, like, damage and imperfections, but that's why I like rescuing dolls from the flea market, because I saw that she had potential, and I'm actually really impressed with how well her hair cleaned up. I didn't think I would get that kind of result, so I love her even with her little nick. She's actually been the longest American Girl project I've ever had. Not in terms of effort. I put probably 10 or 15 hours into my sister's 80s Molly doll, but because of her stain removal, I didn't even get to see her dressed for a whole month. And that's why I finally just was like, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to dress her up, and I'll see if the stains fade any more over the winter. But I love her. She is gorgeous. She's a babe. And my doll does have kind of a wonky eye socket. One of her eyes is kind of a little smaller, but I think she's beautiful. I'm so glad to have her. And if you're wondering, I got her meat dress for $5 at the flea market a few weeks before I found the doll. And I also have her swimsuit, her beach set, and her pajamas. I don't have any of her shoes, but I got those all from a seller at the flea market, a different seller. So it kind of like gave me good luck. Interested in seeing pictures of these dolls, of Kanani's before and after, feel free to check out my Flickr. You don't need a Flickr to view my photos. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.